and finally the hearing will be closed and matters may be considered. Please note that delegations must present in a respectful manner without interference or comment from the audience. City Council is committed to ensuring a safe and respectful environment and supports the right of the community to bring comments forward. Please observe these rules. If you have any concerns with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, direct your comments to the chair. Mr. Clerk, the first item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item number 1 is Richmond Zoning Bylaw 8500, Amendment Bylaw 10001, as proposed for renumbering. The location is 8031, 8051, 8071, number 2 road, and 5760, 5780, 5786 Blundell Road. The applicant is Zhao XD Architect Limited. The purpose is to rezone the subject property from the single detached RS1E zone to the medium density townhouses RTM3 zone to permit the development of 25 townhouse dwellings with vehicle access from 8091 number 2 road. First reading was March 28th, 2022.
All right. Is the applicant here this evening?
Yes.
You're Zhu Dong, applicant. Do you wish to make a presentation or just await questions?
I wait for questions.
All right. Any written submissions?
We have one written submission from Laura Jolanders.
All right, so that's on table. Okay, now from the floor, registered is Eric Chung, property manager of 8091 number 2 road. Are you online or are you with us tonight? Is Eric Chung here? Mr. Clerk, have we heard from him?
No, unfortunately, he doesn't appear to. He did register, but he doesn't appear to be online.
Okay. So there's nobody else online then that we would hear from. Is there anybody here tonight who wishes to speak to us on this item on the agenda, the two in Blundell? Okay, so we'll go to this gentleman and then this gentleman. So please come forward, have a seat. Those flat things in front of you, that's actually the microphone. So if you could speak into those microphones, introduce yourself and tell us what's on your mind.
My name is Barry Kwok. I live at 8091 number 2 road, or Kingfisher Park. We are the strata complex of 10 units just south of the lot that's to be developed. And I'm part of Strata Council, and I'm representing our residents in that area. We do not have a signed petition, basically because most of the residents, owners of the complex do not have a command of the English language, and they really would prefer to just verbalize, which they have done to council members. We have Eric Chung as our property manager, and in speaking with him today, he was to be online and participating. We also have David Vanderpoorten as our lawyer. And so there have been, in the past month and a half, 2 months, numerous emails going back and forth and documents. So because I'm not a lawyer, I will not pretend to know all the legalities involved, but I'm speaking more on the practical sense. There are 2 points that I would like to bring up. One is, the whole idea is that with this complex, the developer has designed it such that they're using number 2 road to access their complex versus being able to access it from Blundell Road. And in doing so, there is some regulation or legality that says that their driveway has to be a certain width, And what they are planning on doing is basically piggybacking on our driveway and using our driveway that we've paid for, we have developed, and saying, thank you very much for your driveway, and now we're going to bring our traffic through there. And it just doesn't seem right. It's like you've got a complex that will be developed that has 25 units. Our complex has 10 units. And so we would have about 28.5% use of the driveway that we have paid for in our development that someone else just decides that they want to use. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the intersection of Number 2 Road and Blundell has a history of high traffic incidents. And having lived in this area, I can say that the southbound traffic on Number 2 Road is quite often going at very high speeds. I have been almost rear-ended several times by people zooming through the intersection when I have given lots of notice with my turn signal, with my brakes, that I'm slowing down so I can turn into my driveway. Traffic on Blundell Road, however, is not nearly as intense, and it would make a lot more sense for the developer to change what they're doing so that they can access their new complex from Blundell Road versus creating more congestion and a higher risk of a traffic incident happening on Number 2 Road. 20, 30 years ago, I've been a resident of Richmond for more than 40 years. 20, 30 years ago, perhaps this wouldn't have been a situation, but nowadays, especially with the pandemic, we have so many deliveries from all these different couriers. People are ordering so many things online, and we have all this traffic going in and out of our driveway already. I just can't imagine what it would be like if we increase the number of residents as well as all the traffic caused by deliveries going into that same driveway. I believe that this complex, this developer should have their own driveway. If they need to have it on Number 2 Road, they should have a separate parallel driveway so that they're not infringing upon our rights. And then secondly, it would be better for them to put their driveway onto Blundell, to put their driveway into an area where they're not going to have high traffic and a much higher incident of possible accidents.
All right, thank you. We've got a question from Councillor McNulty. This is of the delegation.
Delegation and then
Go ahead.
to staff. So your main concern, obviously, the intersection, that's a whole different ballgame, Mr. Kwok, is the placement of the driveway.
Yes.
That's the largest concern that you have, if you wish, if I can put them in order. They're piggybacking with you, but also coming out on Number 2. And if they went out on Blundell, you would have no problem with it, it sounds like.
There'd be no difficulty because now it's a totally different access point. It would be much safer, and then they wouldn't infringe upon the rights of our strata.
Okay. I'd like to ask that question of staff after, Your Worship. Okay, I won't put you on the spot. I'm going to ask staff.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you so much for coming forward. I really appreciate, we've been waiting for someone from the community, from that townhouse community to come forward, so I really appreciate you coming today. So you've seen the drawing, you know
Yes.
how it works. If the access to this was from Blundell, and if instead of 25 individual townhouses, it was maybe 30 condos above, maybe some shops, but everything was accessed from Blundell, how would you feel about that?
I would feel that, first of all, to go from 25 units to 30 or 35, you're bringing in more traffic. but at least it wouldn't be at the same point of access. It would be spread out.
So you're not opposed to redevelopment, you're just opposed to this development that severely affects your complex.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Steves.
Yeah, I have a question for staff.
Okay, we'll we'll wait a minute on that then. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
That is all. There's, the question for staff is twofold. First of all, is on the property to the south, is there a registered right-of-way for the purposes of getting on and off the property that we're talking about tonight?
Through your worship, yes, that is correct. There is an existing SRW that would allow this access, and that would also include widening it for the purposes of better turning radius to enable trucks and other emergency vehicles to be able to turn around on site rather than backing out onto number 2 road as they currently do.
Now, is that a statutory right-of-way?
Yes, through your worship.
Okay,
That's correct.
how long has it been on the neighboring property that we're talking about?
Through your worship, that would have been put in place at the time the property to the south was redeveloped. I don't have the exact date currently, but it would have been at the time it was redeveloped, that would have been added on title to that property.
All right. And do you have any comments? Have you done any studies about the use of Blundell instead of number 2 road for site access?
Through your worship, I might defer that to Mr. B, if I may.
Okay, Lloyd?
Yeah, thank you, your worship. At the end of the day, both number 2 road and Blundell Road are arterial roadways. One of the challenges with the Blundell proposal is that it's pretty close to the corner. Our goal is to get these entryways further, these driveways further from the intersection than would be allowed on Blundell with this property.
Anybody else have questions of staff? Councillor McNulty?
Yeah, to Mr. B, did we look at a driveway off of onto Blundell?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, we didn't specifically look at that. Generally, we don't allow that if there's another opportunity, just because of the distance between the intersection and where the driveway would have to be. Cars coming out of, you can see the problem that it poses if you have an entrance or a driveway that's close to an intersection. That creates a lot more complexity and potential accidents at the intersection.
And the reason did we look at, if you remember, the meeting I chaired when we talked about Stevenson Highway, a right in and a right out. Did we look at right ins or right outs on this as well?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, I am not aware that we did.
Okay, I wonder if the developer did on it. I get the other question I had was of staff, and it wasn't of transport, is Mr. Craig. If we're going with, at the moment, the proposal is for 3-story townhomes. What if we looked at 6-story stacked condos, and what kind of shadow would it cast on the development that's immediately behind, for example, 50, I'm looking at 56, 60, 56, et cetera, if we went 6 stories? Because obviously in something like that, with that kind of size of property, we would be looking to go very high.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor McNulty, the consideration of that 6-story apartment form would both require an official community plan amendment, but it also would have quite a few challenges in terms of fitting into the local context because of the adjacent single-family homes and townhouses. I can't speak to the exact shadowing effect. We'd we'd need more information for that. But what I can say is that the design challenges would include, fewer trees being able to be retained on site, potential shadowing and overlook of the adjacent properties, as well as impacts on transportation and utility capacity always have to be considered. And providing additional parking on site would be an additional challenge.
So staff are quite happy with the proposal that has come forward at the moment with the developer, and is in staff's mind that this is the best use of that property?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, I would say it complies with the official community plan as laid out in the city. I will defer to Mr. Craig if he has additional comments.
Okay.
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, I would not add anything to Mrs. Smith's comments. The proposed townhouse development is consistent with the arterial road designation, the OCP. Additional density would necessitate a change in form. Change in form would likely create additional development requirements in terms of on-site parking. In terms of porosity, that porosity would likely go down as a result of accommodating the parking. With respect to the question of right-in, right-out driveway access, the driveway access to number 2 road is effectively limited to right-in, right-out, as there is currently a delineator down the center of number 2 road. In terms of number 2 road versus Blundell, as Mr. B has indicated, the physical separation to the intersection, which is a problematic intersection, is greatest achieved through the driveway access orientation proposed before you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Now, I've got a number of other people wanting to ask questions. So the gentleman who is standing, just to let you know, we've got a number of other questioners, so you may want to have a seat. It's up to you, of course. Councillor Day.
So, thank you very much, Mayor Brody. I do feel strongly that.
Excuse me, just a minute. Excuse me, sir. We're not having a conference here. Go ahead.
I do feel strongly that if we refer this back, which is what I'm going to be doing, is referring this back, so that we can get a better proposal for this very pivotal, important community hub location.
Is there a question?
My question to staff is, if we send it back and amend the OCP, is there any reason we could not have a building similar to the one at number 3 in Williams, which I have sent out to all council members, which is a simple building with commercial on the bottom and condos up above. And it's not 8 stories, I think it's only about 4. But, and then that is orientated towards the arterial road, so it's not overshadowing the other townhouse complex. It's not overshadowing the single-family residences on the other side.
Is there a question?
Is there a way that we could make the number 3 in Williams development work in this location, yet another community hub?
Doesn't want to do it.
Through your worship to Councillor Day, I believe the process to consider that would take some time to go back to the drawing board to see what could be accommodated there. I don't have the exact same site dimensions. I feel that the other site may have had a larger lot depth and width, but there would be a fair amount of work involved in assessing it to see whether or not it could be considered and potentially fit on that site before beginning a process to start from the beginning to consider a development proposal of a different form. So there would be quite a significant time delay as well. No, thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship, through you to staff. A couple questions. So how did this configuration come about? Was it staff's recommendation, or did the developer come up with this configuration of where to put the driveway?
Of the driveway specifically? Sorry, through you, Councillor Liu.
The driveway configuration.
I believe, sorry, Mr. Craig, do you happen to know that one?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, that would have been staff direction. The arterial road strategy does look to consolidate driveway locations where possible. We do have the legal right through the statutory right of way that is secured on 8091 for the driveway access to be in that location. And from a traffic safety and operations perspective, it is the best option that is available.
Okay, and is there a statutory right-of-way on the neighboring townhouse development on Blundell? Like, it looks like if they were to use that driveway, they'd be driving like in front of a whole bunch of people's front doors, whereas this way, nobody's driving in front of anyone's like front door, back door. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, unfortunately, there is no such legal mechanism that exists on that townhouse project on Blundell Road. It was developed at a prior time in history, and as such, the city did not secure the legal right to provide access to the 6-lot assembly that is before us.
Okay, so the people at 8051, when theirs was built, theirs had the statutory right-of-way. So when we did our arterial road update a couple of years ago, we knew that in some cases people had some concerns about sharing driveways, but we still went ahead with continuing to try to consolidate driveways. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then is there a mechanism for stratas to get together and then share the cost of that driveway? So, as the applicant, as the member of the public just said, when they came forward, that they said, they'll only be responsible for, say, 28% of the use of it. So how do they go about sharing, like, snow plowing and replacement and whatever else has to go? Is there some sort of way that we get them together as the city side of it, or what's the process for that?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, yes, we would expect that the stratas would work together on cost sharing arrangements. Multiple efforts were actually made by the applicant to contact the strata during the staff review process. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful in arranging a meeting with the adjacent strata council. The city took the extraordinary measure of actually requiring that registered mail be sent to every owner in the adjacent strata, advising them of the intent to use the driveway and urging them to meet with the developer to discuss cost sharing. Should this application proceed tonight, there would still be a development permit required to deal with the detailed form and character of the proposed townhouses. There would be ample opportunity during that time for the applicant and the strata to meet and work through the details of what any cost sharing arrangements over the use of that driveway may be.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to staff. Well, in the report, on our PH 40 and 41, it speaks to that if, as part of the rezoning consideration, the applicant is coming up with about $125,000 to go towards traffic operations and safety. And can you speak to what those improvements would entail?
Yes, through your worship, to Councillor McPhail. They include some wider sidewalks and landscaping boulevard, but also for some existing flex posts to be replaced on number 2 road and future traffic signal upgrades.
So that would improve the safety of that intersection, would it?
That is my understanding, yes.
And just another question through you, Your Worship, to the traffic, to Mr. B of traffic. So I think we've had many discussions about, the speed and the flow of traffic in Richmond, and I think everyone would agree that on number 2 road, traffic can be fast. Has there been any traffic studies of this intersection in particular?
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail, I don't have that detailed information with me, but I can get that and find out if there have been. I imagine that there have been. I'm certain that it was at some point part of our top 20 intersection study. And but I don't have that detailed information with me right now, but I could certainly get back to council with that.
So then the upgrades that are being done as a part of this rezoning would go a long ways in perhaps helping with the safety of that intersection and the flow of traffic?
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail, yes, absolutely. It would create more pedestrian safety for sure. And, I think one of the challenges that we have is that there's a lot of flow of traffic. This is what's created some of our speeding issues. So I don't know if creating an ability for people to go faster is in our best interest here, but definitely we are looking for items that will protect the public that are pedestrians, and to also, potentially slow cars down.
All right, thank you very much.
Sorry? What? Oh, my question is about picking up on the idea of this right in, right out. Haven't we put some bollards between where this development would be and across the street? So you cannot go southbound on number 2 road and turn left to go eastbound into that development until you get to the traffic light?
Through your worship, yes, you are correct. The driveway to 8091 number 2 road is limited to right in, right out as a result of the delineators which are on the center line.
Sorry, I've got more addresses here. 8091
The proposed driveway location.
is right in, right out.
Correct.
That is the way it is now.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. All right. That's good. Councillor Steve, did you have a question at this point for staff?
My question was answered.
Okay, good deal. All right, we have another speaker. This gentleman has been very patient. Sorry to keep you waiting there. Would you rather stand?
No, I'm fine, thanks. It's
Okay.
just those theater seats are awful low.
All right.
And, yeah, my name's John Cameron, and I've resided in Richmond so long that my personality now resembles the topography. Fat, flat, boring, and insular, so. Yes, I live across from what used to be the credit union there on 2 Road. So you're nowhere near my house because you hear a lot of breaking dishes and yelling. So, but anyhow, what I want to know is what is the timeline for these developments? Because I'm sitting there and those signs have been up for years further down the street, and I know this pandemic slowed everything down. Because my neighbor's also wondering too, because we're old and we don't know whether to fix the houses up or what to do. So some indication of timelines would be really great.
If you could face us here. Timeline for this particular application or timeline for the
Well,
neighborhood?
there's one further down at 2 and right adjacent to the Presbyterian Church there, and that's been there for years. And several other ones. So there's one at the next road down at the corner.
Well, I think it's a fine question. I just don't know that staff's going to have the answer, but let's ask staff. Do we have any idea of the timeline for the various developments in this area? Is there any way we could have that?
Through your worship, what I would suggest is we're happy to meet with the gentleman to talk about other developments in the area. In terms of timeline for this proposal, I believe Mr. Judon would be the best person to answer that question.
All right.
Yeah.
There's a huge lineup of people along Blondell expecting to develop on the north side. And they want to know what's happening. And I came to council years ago. I'm next to condos and there's a laneway, and I make sure dead it ended there so they could run a laneway along further along behind Blondell. So anyhow.
All right. So you've heard about the difficulty in answering that question. It's a
Yes,
good
yes.
question. The best thing you can do, I think, sir, if I could suggest, as you see these signs, there's contact information on the signs. So you could always phone or contact that person at the city
Yeah.
and see what they can tell you about timelines.
Yeah.
One of the challenges we have here, of course, is that even with having this application tonight, the applicant still has to decide on the exact timing of it. So he could get final adoption very quickly and hold it off for a long time. That is just up to the applicant in that case. I'm sorry? Yeah,
Okay, I can contact them.
okay.
Those signs have been up for years. It reminds me
Well-
of sex life, my sex life, a lot of promises, but nothing ever happened. So
Yes, sir.
what can you do? Right?
So, okay, so we'll ask the applicant if he's got anything to tell us, but that's about the best we can do tonight for you,
Okay,
sir.
thanks for the information.
Yep,
Thanks again.
thank you.
And whatever happened to the Lulu Theater? Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Mr. Dong, do you have anything to tell us about on timeline?
Yeah, like once if the DP approved, and it will take maybe a half year for building permit, and then take 1 year to build.
Okay, so that's the best answer we can give you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Now, is there anybody else here who wants to speak? I understand Mr. Chung is on the line, so we're going to speak to him, but anybody else here who wants to speak to this? Okay, I'll take it the answer is no. We have Mr. Eric Chung on the phone. So you're the property manager for 8091 number 2 Road. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you quite well, thank you.
Okay.
And my apologies for not being able to get on Zoom properly. I guess somehow there's a glitch somewhere. But in any case, if there's anything that you want to know from me after all the discussion that has already taken place, I'd be glad to answer them first. And after that, I can probably say a thing or two regarding how the strata generally does not feel that is the best solution going forward if we have to share the driveway as proposed. I'm just wondering if there's any questions for me that had kind of waited for me to come online while I was offline.
Sir, I can tell you that Mr. There was another Zudong. No, he's the applicant. There was another gentleman here from the Strata Corporation that outlined the problems, and we've had a good discussion on that. But of course, if you've got further concerns, we're happy to hear them.
Yeah, so basically, I think the council members present might have already mentioned the safety issue concerning the traffic, the high volume of traffic and the speed of the traffic coming down number 2 Road. As you all know, that's a very busy intersection just north of our location. And with the vehicles coming down, it's very difficult already going into the property and going out of the property. And we're quite concerned about having additional traffic, especially the development that is, more than twice our size, to go into just right next to the driveway that we have. That will compound the difficulty in terms of ingress and egress for traffic. That's certainly one of the major concerns. And then there's also security with the driveway open up, with the fence taken down. I guess it invites more people coming into our area. There's going to be more people from the public that may take advantage of the wider access to come in, and with that, security is also a concern. But parking is also another derivative of having a shared type of a driveway. As you know, visitor parking is very much a concern to most of these townhouses, and if there is a bigger development next to ours, there's going to be a much greater chance of people or visitors to their complex coming to ours to take advantage of additional parking. Now that said, there's also a maintenance issue, and that is somewhat puzzling because from our perspective, as this, from the point of view of the strata, of management of a strata, this is right from the initial stage, is set up as a strata plan with defined boundaries. Now, if you change the driveway into a shared driveway, the boundary would rest somewhere between the two sides of the driveway and not exactly down the middle. So in terms of maintenance, how are we going to be dealing with that? That's a bit of it's a question mark, I'd say the very least, for us who have to look after the property had it been separated this way. So I don't know if there's a plan in place for that, but if there isn't, then we're concerned that might have to be addressed eventually, and it's probably better addressed now than later on. From my understanding, I guess there should be some kind of an agreement in place whereby the maintenance of the driveway would be very well defined, so that there won't be any arguments later on. For example, this is a very simple example of snow removal. If the driveway is going to be split, say 1/4 down one side and then 3/4 to the other side, how are we going to divvy up the responsibility? I mean, driveways, if shared, will have to shovel the snow either to one side or the other. Can't be 1/4 away off one side or 3/4 away to another, and it will be very tempting for them to do so because, under separate management, the two stratas would have to deal with a very likely scenario like that. With a snowbank right, somewhere between the two sides, with no way of actually making it practical. So I think in terms of how you work out a solution for making sure that each side has proper responsibility for what they need to divvy up, then that should be clear ahead of time rather than later on down the road when you have two separate management bring about this kind of a resolution. Other than that, I think I suppose I should just mention in terms of fairness, if you divide the driveway not exactly half and half, but maybe 70-30, I don't know exactly how wide you're proposing the driveway, how much on our side and how much on their side. It seems to me from something I read before that you're proposing like maybe 70% of our driveway is going to be shared, and 1/4 of the rest of the driveway is going to be on the new development side. So,
All right,
it seems a little bit unfair in terms of allocation because you have a much bigger development with twice the size, and yet the driveway on our side is much bigger for sharing than their side. So it should have been the other way. If we had to, well, I'm not suggesting that we have to, but if we had to deal with this fairly, then their side should be much wider than our side.
all right, let's get you some answers to that, sir.
Yeah.
And just a minute, before we go to staff, I've got a number of hands up. Are they questions for the delegation? Councillor Day?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you ask a question of the delegation.
Coming forward, and I certainly hear your concerns about the shared driveway. When I look at the redevelopment of these 6 lots on Blundell and Number 2 Road, there's building 1, building 2, building 3, building 4. They're all towards the road. If the building 4 was pushed over towards number 2 road, there could potentially be an access on Blundell. And my thought is to, densify the development towards number 2 road and not towards the back. In other words, get rid of the townhouses that face the neighborhood. Do you think that if we densified the development towards number 2 road and created a driveway on Blundell, which would be at the very, west end of the property of these 6 lots, would that alleviate the concerns that you have in your development with the 10 townhouses?
Mr. Chung, are you there?
Hello?
Are you there?
Is this for, okay. Yeah, I'm still here, sorry. I would think that any traffic directed towards Blundell would be a much better solution than having it directed towards number 2. But from the speaker just now, I suppose you mean that you would put a drive-through, like one side coming from Blundell and one side coming from number 2. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. This is Councillor Day speaking to you, just so you know. What I'm looking at is a reconfiguration of the entire project. And my question is, if the reconfiguration of the project went from, let's say, townhouses to condos, but the driveway was now either eliminated or diminished on number 2 road and moved to Blundell, could you see that being a better option?
Oh, for sure. But the thing is, I suppose then you're suggesting that there is a much higher density in that case then?
Basically, we'd have to send it back and start all over again.
The answer is yes, there would be higher density. That is the question. Do you want higher density towards Blundell?
Yeah, high density and exit towards Blundell. I would throw that question to the 2 council members present to see if that makes sense or not. And if it is higher density, whether it's going to be higher 3 levels with higher levels or more levels, or basically it's going to be the same 2-level kind of or 3-level kind of configuration.
It'd be 3 or 4 levels or more.
It'll be 4 levels will be higher than our side then. Correct? We have 3 levels.
So do you think that's an option?
So basically that's an option. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of exposure from outside, I don't think there is a lot of windows that are actually facing the north. So maybe the council members can think about that to see if that is a viable solution rather than having to share the driveway. It is a possible. I would think that would be a possible alternative. I don't think the lighting would be affected either. So it seems to me that if there's a taller structure on the north side, if that is going to be a major concern, it'll be up to council or the members present to comment on that.
We've got a question from Councillor Wolf.
Hello, Mr. Chung. I got 3 short questions. The first one is in relation to the option that you just suggested, where the entrance to the new complex and your complex would be off of Blundell, and the exit for both complexes would be onto 2 road. Is that what you just described?
Well, that's not. That would be definitely not as preferable. But if the entry is confined to Blundell, that would be the best solution, I would think.
Great.
Because for the same reason as I mentioned earlier, that if you put any kind of traffic more towards outside, it's going to be creating a situation where if you imagine if people are going to work out, coming out, lining up to get onto number 2, both vehicles coming out from our side and from the new development, they'll be kind of competing against each other as well for entering into number 2, which is kind of chaotic, I would think.
Thank you.
As much as Yeah.
Yeah, I can more than imagine it. So thank you for that. The second question is, your existing parking for your strata, is there enough for visitor parking in all the residents? And if not, where does the overflow parking go?
Well, there isn't much overflow parking, to say the least. I suppose that whole area is a bit of a problem getting visitors to park. During holidays or during times of the year when there's a lot of visitors, I think it's always a challenge because you can never stop anywhere on number 2, and of course you can't stop. There's no side streets there. Quite a ways down, you can't find a side street you can park a car. And then you can't park across to the other side, to the center. So, I think there is not much of that option there. Now, if you're suggesting that maybe the new development will allow for more overflow parking, I am not too sure if that is going to work well with the the residents there as well. And I suppose if we assume that things can work out, if there is a few more visitor parking there that they would allow us to park there, I think that may be a bit of a stretch from what I've seen before.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. I have one final question. Yeah. It was brought up earlier about that there was no meeting between your strata and the developer. Is that for any specific reason, or have you been available for a meeting?
Well, to be honest, about 2 years ago, I think their agent contacted me about this plan already, and I did tell them that, firstly, I would ask our council to see if they're agreeable to it, and I did, and the response was that they're not agreeable to the plan. So, and I believe I talked to them maybe a couple of times already on that occasion to confirm that we are not agreeable to it. And if we have to share the driveway, we are not agreeable. But if there's some other ways, such as if there's a driveway that exits away from our entryway, then it may be something that can be worked out. And then I haven't heard from them since. Therefore, it's we thought everything was put to rest, but then we got this letter from the legal counsel that we received back in January this year that was suggesting that that they would like to kind of move this forward with concession from the city in terms of the right of way. So that was a bit of a news to us, and we were not prepared for that.
All right.
But we apologize to council if we took us a little time. Sometimes it takes time for us to find our legal counsel as well, and to look for solutions and to find ways of dealing with this new scenario. So
thank you, Mr.
Chung.
All right. Thank you.
That's where we are. Yeah.
Councillor Au.
All right.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chung, I have a question for you. I have some observation about the proposed driveway, and I have a concern because of that. And I don't know if you share my concern. Now, right now, for the residents in your compound, when they go out to work in the morning, they just get out of the house and then they make a right turn onto the driveway, and then they get onto number 2 road. Now, the proposed driveway, which is going to be shared, and also if the people in a new complex, when they go to work in the morning, what they have to do is that they would get onto the driveway, the shared driveway, and make a left turn. And if 2 or 3 cars are coming out at the same time, I would imagine that there could be a backup, because some you people are turning
Is
right.
there a question here?
Yes, and then the people are turning, left. So do you see that could be a concern that there could be some backup in the morning or in the afternoon when people are going home, and create some.
Are you, oh, by the way, are you a resident of the area?
Well, I'm living nearby.
Oh, okay. All right. So I did. But anyways, you know there is a I don't think you can make a left turn there. It's just so much traffic that if you make a left turn, if I don't even think that that's allowed. I think there's a median between the two sides.
No, I'm saying that from the
Correct me if I'm
compound,
wrong.
from the compound, when you get onto the.
Yeah. Okay. So if assuming you can make a left turn, I think it would be very dangerous for you to make a left turn there, and I don't know if the city would allow that because you got some cars coming from left and right, and you got to watch. On top of that, if we're sharing the same driveway, and now unless there's I don't know if there's going to be, if there's a traffic light that maybe that will work, but
okay, no,
but that would mean that there's
think,
like so many traffic lights along that strip there that it's almost impossible because there's another light right by the entrance to the mall there, just a few feet away, so it doesn't make sense. I don't think for you to have another set of lights there.
no,
But in any
John,
case,
I think it's difficult for me to
make
it clear to you without a map or a map of the traffic pattern. So I would talk about it later on. Yeah, we'll move on.
My question's for staff, Your Worship.
All right. Okay, so those are all the questions of this delegation. Thank you, Mr. Chung. We will excuse you.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right.
My question, first of all, how long has this application been in the offing? When was it made?
Through your worship, the rezoning application was submitted in 2018. It was placed on hold for some time throughout the review until the current site assembly was rationalized in around 2020.
Okay. Now, there's been some discussion about the shared driveway. My understanding is that, first of all, on the titles to the property to the south, what's that, 8091, the shared access agreement or the right-of-way or the rights to a right-of-way would be registered on title. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Worship.
So the property manager and the strata council should surely have, well, they're taken to have legal knowledge of this arrangement, right?
Through your worship, yes, whoever was the conveying attorney or notary should have advised all of the property owners of this existence.
And of course, there could be turnover of units, but the current owners should know about this, is my point. Secondly, they talk about, one of the delegations was talking about how to divide it up. I mean, how does maintenance, when you have a right-of-way over this entrance and exit, how does it work with maintenance?
Through your worship, generally shared driveways between two townhouse complexes is quite a common occurrence in the city of Richmond, given the arterial road redevelopment policies of consolidating driveways. Generally, how this issue is addressed is the two parties do meet. They enter into a private cost sharing and operation agreement. That agreement would deal with things such as maintenance responsibilities and costs and the distribution of those costs. The application of strata bylaws to the users of the driveway to ensure they're acting and using the driveway in an appropriate fashion. There would also likely be issues around access to visitor parking spots and making it clear that residents from one complex do not have the ability to park in the visitor parking spots in the other complex. In terms of the ability for that agreement to be executed, I believe the applicant, Mr. Judon, would be more than willing to agree to such a meeting to work out those terms.
is that a term or a rezoning consideration, put it that way, that agreement has to be entered into?
Through your worship, we do not have a requirement for such agreement to be entered into, as effectively that would provide a veto opportunity for the strata to object. What we do have as a rezoning consideration is a reciprocal granting of an easement or a statutory right-of-way for the benefit of the existing strata, so that they would have the ability to do a 3-point turn instead of having to back large vehicles out onto number 2 road. We would also, should this application proceed, we could make it a condition to provide an update on a cost sharing agreement as part of the development permit.
An update, okay. All right, now Councillor Hobbs, you have a question of staff.
Yeah, thank you, and through your worship. I think there's some confusion, maybe, on what exactly a statutory right-of-way is. So I think if you could explain it in ordinary language, because you kind of commented on it here. It's actually quite common. I think it's also quite common, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a question, that the first development, when there's multiple developments going in, the first development often builds the majority of the right-of-way because it has to be big enough for people to access the first development. And sometimes some developments even build the entire right-of-way and the next development doesn't build any of it. So I'd like you to just comment on that. And if you just define why we have, or explain why we have statutory right-of-ways and how they work. And you have touched on it a little bit. And I just have one other question about traffic being close to the intersections. And I think to emphasize the point too, the way it's configured right now, one of the most dangerous things about this whole development that exists and the one proposed is my understanding is that large vehicles have to back out onto number 2 road. And that's probably the most unsafe thing that I've heard described in this whole conversation, multiple conversations. When things have to back out onto a major road, that's extremely dangerous for pedestrians and for vehicles. So if that's accurate, I'd like you to comment on all those things.
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, a statutory right-of-way is a legal mechanism that the city is able to register on title of a property that effectively establishes the terms under which the city, members of the public, or any contractors of the city may access that property. The statutory right-of-way was registered over the existing driveway of the strata complex to the south when that project was redeveloped. It went through the rezoning process in the late 2009 period. It was constructed in and around 2012. The right-of-way agreement is registered on title. It would be disclosed as part of any property sale to residents. In terms of the write-in or the ability, should the proposal as envisioned tonight proceed, if I am to refer you to page, sorry, bear with me for a moment. So I would refer you to page PHN 27 of the agenda package. What you will see on page 27 is that a T intersection is created at where currently there is an L-shaped intersection on the townhouse complex to the south. The T intersection will allow garbage recycling vehicles to turn around on site using a 3-point turn and exit onto number 2 road in a forward gear. Have I covered all bases, Councillor Hobbs, or was there something that I missed?
You haven't. Just one more comment, one more quick question. And the right-of-ways are done in anticipation of further developments, correct? It's not an accident. And when they're not done, as you've described in some previous developments, that creates other issues. But they're done in advance, they're done in anticipation, and the idea is to actually reduce the number of driveways, correct, on main roads?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, that is in fact exactly the situation, yes.
And just one other comment, if I could, Your Worship, about accessing onto Blundell. While that might sound like a good idea, the fact is where the driveway is planned on number 2 road to be a joint driveway based on the right-of-way versus where it would have to be, even if it was as far to the west as possible, entering on to Blundell, is by looking at the map, I haven't measured it, but by looking at the map, it looks to be half the distance from the main intersection. So from a traffic safety point of view or a planning point of view, and I stand to be corrected, Mr. Craig, the desire is to have driveways as far away from main intersections as possible because you don't want to be having traffic flowing into a busy intersection from too many driveways. And if you do, you want them as far back from the intersection as possible. So the question would be, am I correct when I say that when you're planning it, if you have one driveway that appears to be perhaps 100 feet back from the intersection, or you have another plan that could have it maybe 200 feet back from the main intersection, the choice would likely tend to be have it as far away from the intersection as possible, even if it's a joint driveway. Would that be a correct summary of why we would do that?
Yes, you are correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here to speak on this? Yes, you may come forward and you'll be given 3 more minutes, but it has to be on new information, not the same old stuff or the same stuff previously told
I'd
to
like
us.
to clarify, I've heard a few times now talking about it being unsafe to back out of the driveway. As my observations go, people do not back onto number 2 road. What they do is they turn around inside, or in some cases, the delivery vehicles have actually parked on number 2 road, dropped off their delivery, and then 45 seconds later, they get back in their vehicle. I have seen the city of Richmond and other vehicles taking away the recycling or the garbage will have a staff member get out, hold the traffic while they back into our driveway so they can drive back out. So I just wanted to clarify that point. The idea is, I understand that you want to reduce the ingress, egress away from the intersection, and I understand that, I can appreciate that. But at the same time, because of the high volume of traffic on number 2, it doesn't make sense from a safety point of view to add so much more.
I think you've already made that point, sir.
Thank you.
We do have a couple, is that of this delegation? We have a question of you, sir.
Now, I want to ask the question that I raised earlier with Mr. Chung, but because there's no map, right, probably he did not understand my question. Now, I'm using page 29 as an illustration. I hope you can see that. Now, your complex is here on the south side. So right now, when you guys go out, you just go north and then make a right turn onto the driveway.
Our complex access is right turn in, right turn
Yes,
out. There is no left turn north from our complex.
But what I'm saying is that, okay, assuming that you have a house here right now, you have the unit here. You get out of your house, you use your driveway, come to this section, and then you turn into the driveway going into number 2 road. Am I right?
You turn south on
Yes,
number 2
right,
road, it's a
right.
right turn.
Okay. So now the design is that with this new development, they have to come out from here, right? And meet you guys in this area, the shaded area that I use. So when you guys are coming out from here, and some people coming out from there, actually you have some kind of backup.
There will be a lot of congestion, yes.
Right. So that's my concern. So I mean, do you see that could be a concern? You know, in the morning.
I most certainly do.
Right.
And as I mentioned before, that 30 years ago, perhaps that wouldn't have been a problem, but I can see every day we have so many delivery vehicles from people ordering.
Sir, I think you've made that point.
So that's my concern. Okay, just.
Councillor Day.
Well, thank you very much for coming forward again. As Councillor Au pointed out, it's basically where everyone's going to have to come in and out. So my question is, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, 10 units, is that right?
That's correct.
Right, and from when I'm looking at the overhead map, it looks like you were originally 2 city lots that get developed into 10 units. This 25 units is, according to my calculations, 4,300 square meters. It's over 100,000 square feet. Like it's a significantly bigger footprint, is what I'm saying. According to my calculations, it's about 2.25 times the size.
What is your question?
My question is, if that complex is built in that footprint and it doesn't affect your driveway, instead it comes right in and right out off of Blundell, would that in any way affect your quality of life?
Maybe not directly, but just the very fact that there is going to be so much more traffic in general, as well as the density of residents. If accessing the complex is a safety issue that requires the new developer to put their access from number 2 road, why could they not just put a parallel driveway to ours and use what they have, rather than to infringe upon something that we have built and paid for? They can just have a parallel driveway there.
Okay, last question. Right now, there are 6 rental houses sitting in that property. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, along number 2 road in Blundell. In any way, do they affect your quality of life or traffic or safety?
At this time, no.
Thank you.
Have you looked at the title to your property?
I've looked at it very closely with with consulting our lawyer in recent times, yes.
Well, you'll see there's a right-of-way on it.
Yes, we've been made aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You're finished? All right, I'm going to ask for council consideration. Sorry? No, sir. We're finished for the first time. Okay, may I have a motion on council consideration?
Zoning bylaw 8500.
All right, is it seconded? All right. Any discussion on that? Councillor Day?
That we refer this back for further consultation, because I think we can make better use of this property as per the drawings that I brought out
Is
earlier.
it seconded? Okay, so that's moved and seconded. Councillor Steves?
Yeah, I was going to oppose the motion, but I will speak in favor of the referral. To start with, I want to give you a bit of history. Back in 1972, if you look at the map on page 19, a lot exactly the same size as this, immediately to the east of the Blundell Shopping Center, was owned by Dunhill Developments Limited, and we rezoned that for a tall building. In 1972, the NDP government bought Dunhill Developments and developed that site. But before that time, when we approved Dunhill Developments putting that building there, council anticipated that as the population grew, that type of development would actually surround the Blundell Shopping Center. And somehow that from 1970 to 50 years, and we're still building townhouses. I think that's a bit of a problem, because when we permitted that one in the first place, we assumed that you'd get tall buildings all the way around Blundell Shopping Center. The same thing we expected to happen to Steveston and the area around the Steveston Community Center. And we did get one building, we got the Lions Manor. But that was what was anticipated way back in the 70s. And we're now facing a housing crisis, and we're still allowing the low-level construction. So that's the problem I've got. Now, in terms of the road allowance.
No, just Harold, excuse me, yeah. Councillor, merits of referral.
Yeah, well, this is a merit of referral. I want to make clear in terms of the road allowance that that we should be looking at simply building a new development instead of putting the road allowance in. But in 1976, we used to approve half road allowances, and that could have happened here. It didn't work, so we gave the option of building an entire road allowance, which is what staff was talking about. But originally, we on Lucas Road, the first development with a shared driveway, had half a road allowance, which was not good, and that's why we're in that situation. But certainly, I would support the referral to get higher density.
Councillor Wolf, on the merits of referral.
Yeah, thank you. As Councillor Steves, I was going to oppose it, but I will support the referral. So a few of the points that I'll raise for why I support the referral is one was clear to me. Both sides need to meet, and I think some accommodations and changes could be made after that meeting. So I think we need to allow for that to occur. Secondly, there's a planning meeting tomorrow that involves mandatory market rental housing policy, which could impact a site like this. I'll also point out that I think the statutory right-of-way that was mentioned, although there is legality to it, I think it's old news, just as the OCP is for this region. So again, more reason that we can get a better project for this site. Finally, I'm very familiar with after major arterial intersections, the driveways in on the right-hand side, and cars go fast to get through those intersections, and then they have to slam on the brakes. And I know many people have had rear enders in situations just like this. I definitely can support it for that reason, and many others I won't get into that aren't part of the referral. Thanks.
Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't be supporting the motion to refer. I find it really interesting when we talk about memory, because I remember how the official community plan was adopted by unanimous decision in 2012. And the arterial road land use policy was unanimously adopted by council as well. And just recently, not too long ago, we had some review of it, and it was unanimously adopted. I think just recently we discussed that public hearing is not the place or venue to look at OCP amendments. So I will not be supporting the motion to refer. I think this project meets the criteria of the OCP and the arterial road land use policy. And unfortunately, the configuration of the lot does not allow for the driveway to be on Blundell. We heard that from staff. We heard how that was unsafe. So I think this is a good application. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Au.
Your Worship, I support the referral. I know this area quite well, and I also know that this is an area with a very high numbers of accidents. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm concerned about the kind of internal traffic congestion that can be created because of the directions of the traffic coming out at the same time. So I would like to explore the possibility of having another entrance on Blundell Road. I don't hear staff saying that it's not actually not possible. It might impact the design of the project, but I would like to have further information from staff from the point of view whether or not an entrance on Blundell Road is possible.
I'm not going to support referral. This is an application that's been around since 2018. I realize it had a hiatus for a while, but it's been around for a number of years. It fits with the official community plan, as has been stated. And also, we have this challenge every time any complex goes to use the cross-access agreement. It's always the discussion that it's not right or fair in some way, but as has been pointed out, it's right on title, it's no surprise, and it's binding and lawful on everybody in that complex and the Strata Corporation itself. So I'm not going to support referral, though I hear the concerns. So on referral, all those in favor? I'm seeing Councillor Steves with his hand up, Day, Wolf, and Al. Those opposed? So that is defeated with Councillors Hobbs, McNulty, McPhail, Liu, and the mayor opposed. So that is defeated. So on the main motion, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? So it's carried with the same four who voted for referral are now voting against this project. So that's carried. And yes, second and third reading on the zoning bylaw. So that's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed? So the voting is just the same. That is carried. It's the same as previous. Okay, next item, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item number 2 is application by Praise Design and Construction Incorporated for rezoning at 7420-7440 Langdon Road from the 2-unit dwellings RD1 zone to the single detached RS2B zone. The location is 7420 and 7440 Langdon Road. The applicant is Praise Design and Construction Incorporated, Paul C. The purpose is to rezone the subject property from the 2-unit dwellings RD1 zone to the single detached RS2B zone to permit the property to be subdivided to create 2 single-family lots. First reading was April 11th, 2022.
All right. Now, the applicant, Mr. C, is on the line. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. We're not having a conference here, sir.
We were just reading.
Thank you.
The last time you said that, it was because.
No, sir, I'm in the middle of something. Thank you. So we have Mr. C on the line, and you're the applicant. Did you wish to make a proposal or a statement, or give us some information, or just await questions? I'm asking Mr. C, who is the applicant here. You're muted, Mr. C. Yeah, you're still muted.
Hi, actually, I have no question or any proposal. I'm just waiting for the zoning to get approved so I can move on, proceed to applying for the building permit.
Okay.
The house, the old house, the duplex has already been demolished. I already got the demolition permit a couple of months back, and I'm just waiting for zoning to get approved before I could submit the house plan to building department.
All right. Any written submissions?
We have none, Your Worship.
All right. Anybody wishing to speak to us on this item on the agenda? Did you wish to speak to us on this?
Second, third.
No, just a minute. I've got to clarify. He had his hand up. Okay. Did you wish to speak to us on this item? No. No. I'll come back to you in a second. We'll just finish this one. I'll come back to you. All right. So nobody from the floor. So did you say you're moving second and third? Okay. Wayne, Craig, did you want to speak? Did you want to say something?
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to highlight that there is a piece of on-table correspondence related to this application.
All right. Oh, there's on-table correspondence.
That's for tomorrow.
The clerk says that's for tomorrow. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Now, just before we go to the next item, Mr. Clerk, before we go to the next item, does this gentleman want to say something? Mr. Clerk, what does he want?
I think he's wanted to clarify that item 1.
Thank you. Okay, now yes, so the first item is finished and it was passed. Okay? Is that it? Is that your question?
Last question. How that means it's done or as a future public hearing again?
No, there's no future public hearing. Yeah, yes, as is pointed out, there are various development procedures that have to still be carried out. But this is the public hearing as such on the application, okay? There could be something called a development permit. There could be other procedures. And you can check with staff, city staff, as to what they are and when they will occur.
My English is not good. So the question is, they can use the driveway or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
They
So,
can use our driveway.
yes, it's a cross-access agreement, and they will use a shared driveway into the other place and into yours.
Into ours. So the question is, the land is ours, why they can use our land?
Sir, we're getting back into it, sir. We can talk to you later if you want, but. All right, next item, Mr. Clark.
Your worship, item number 3 is application by Doug Lowen for rezoning at 4880 Gary Street from the single detached RS1E zone to the single detached RS2A zone. Location is 4880 Gary Street. The applicant is Doug Lowen. The purpose is to rezone the subject property from the single detached RS2E zone to the single detached RS2A zone to permit the property to be subdivided to create 2 lots. First reading was April 11th, 2022.
Okey-doke. Mr. Lowen, Doug Lowen, you're the applicant. I see you're on our Zoom call. Did you want to say anything or just await questions on your application?
Just await the questions, please.
All right. Any written submissions?
We have no written submissions.
All right. Anybody want to speak to us on this one? All right, so it's moved. Is it seconded? Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Councillor McPhail on the next one.
Oh, sorry. Yes, your worship. I need to excuse
Always happy to
myself
help.
because my husband has an interest in a business that did participate in the City of Richmond patio program in year 2. While they're not going to be participating in the future, I feel I should excuse myself.
All right, Mr. Clerk.
Your worship, item number 4 is the proposed ongoing City of Richmond patio program. The location is the Steveston area plan. The applicant is the City of Richmond. The purpose of the OCP amendment is to introduce design guidelines for patios in the Steveston area plan. The purpose of the regulatory and procedural bylaws not subject to the public hearing are to introduce regulatory and procedural framework for the proposed ongoing patio program throughout the city. First reading of the OCP amendment was April 11th, 2022.
All right, does the city want to say anything about this plan, this program?
Your worship, the series of bylaw amendments in front of you this evening follow the, okay, nothing to add, your worship.
Just hold on a sec. Are there any written submissions?
We have no written submissions.
Okay, and nobody's wanting to speak to us on this one? All right, so second and third. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Day.
Yeah, I just want to say how excited I am about us approving this tonight because it really has made the city a more vibrant city. And I think that the outdoor patios add to the city. And while they came in because of COVID, that was one of the benefits of COVID, is we got to look at things a little differently. So I'm really excited about supporting this.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. That's the OCP. That's moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Public space. So, moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Temporary commercial industrial use procedure.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Consolidated fees. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Heritage, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you, and we are now adjourned.